Hello and welcome to this video tutorial on the pod progressions process. The progressions process is the process that moves pupils from one academic year to the next academic year, whilst at the same time moving them up a standard. So for example, pupils in junior infants in this current academic year will be moved to senior infants in the next academic year. Pupils in senior infants in this current academic year will be moved to first class in the next academic year, and so on. Pupils in special classes in the current academic year will be moved to special classes in the next academic year. Before you start your progressions process, it is important, if you have any updates to make to your pupil enrolment details, to do so now, as the progressions process effectively closes off the current academic year and starts off the new academic year. There are two ways in which to do the progressions process. You can progress the pupils, or you can progress the pupils and their associated class groupings. I'm going to show you an example of both. Prior to doing either method, we recommend that you take a copy of your class groupings. So on the EasyNet menu on the left hand side of the screen, go to Rollover and next year's class groupings. You're given the option to copy your class groups. So it says, as you are just starting to set up next year's class groups, as a starting point, would you like to take a copy of this year's class groups? We recommend that you do this, so click Take Copy. All this is doing is copying your existing class groupings. So in this school, we had 5 teachers, and it's taken a copy of those class groups for the next academic year. As you can see, there are no pupils in any of these class groups because all we've done is copy the groups. We haven't yet moved the pupils. At this stage, you can edit or delete these class groupings. You can edit and change the name of the class grouping, or the class type, or the class medium of instruction. Now you're ready to start your progressions. So on the EasyNet menu on the left hand side of the screen, go to Rollover and Progressions. Click this. When you click this, the screen comes up here, Progression Initiation. And here you can select either if you're going to roll over with your class groupings, which would be our second example, or if you're going to roll over without your class groupings. So this is the example we're going to click now. This brings up the progressions declaration, so you need to read this. Then you need to tick to indicate that you've read it and that you understand. Then click Rollover. Progressions are now in process. This may take a few minutes. In future iterations of POD, you will be emailed when this is finished. Now that the progressions process is finished, go back into the progression screen. This brings up a report of how many pupils were progressed. So you can see it tells you which years you're dealing with. So we were progressing from the 2013-14 academic year to the 2014-15 academic year. It shows this is quite a small school for the example. It shows that there were 29 pupils, and of these 29 pupils, 22 of them were progressed to the next year and 7 were not progressed. Underneath this, it gives you some counts, so it shows you that there were 4 pupils in junior infants in 2013-14, and these all moved to senior infants in 2014-15. You can see the examples here of all the other movements. So at the end there was 1 pupil in a special class in 2013 and 14, and this pupil progressed to the next academic year, 2014-15, to a special class. Underneath this is another summary again of the current counts in the different standards. And at the bottom it shows pupils that did not progress. So in this example, 7 pupils did not progress. Looking at the bottom part first, the maximum standard was reached for 4 of these pupils. This means that these pupils were in 6th class, so they're not going to be progressed because they're going to be leaving the school. Or if this was a junior school, you set your maximum standard and to be whatever your maximum standard is in the school. Then there were also 3 pupils that did not progress because they had incomplete pupil enrolment records. This is why it's very important to make sure all your enrolment records are completed before the progressions process has taken place. If this happens and you get an incomplete pupil record upon progression, please contact us at our help desk here at 01 889 2311. So we're going to click OK now. We've had a look at the report. The progressions process is now finished and all of our pupils have been progressed from the 2013-2014 academic year to the 2014-2015 academic year. This was simple progressions without the class grouping, so you'd now need to go back into your pupils. So you could go into pupil batch update and update your pupils into class groupings. So for instance, we could search for all of our senior infants. And as you can see, they have no class grouping here. So we could select them all. And then we could assign them to a class. So let's say we put them into Miss Walpole's class and update batch. And now you can see all of those pupils in senior infants are being taught in Miss Walpole's class group. And we do this for the rest of our classes as well, for the rest of the pupils that we progressed. So that's the first example of progressions without progressing the class groups, and we recommend this type of method of progression for smaller schools or for schools where your class groups change from one year to the next. Now I'm going to show you an example of progression process where we're going to progress the pupils and their class groupings. We recommend this for schools in which the class groupings remain fairly constant. So as before we start, we're going to set up next year's class groupings. So we go click into next year's class groupings, and where it asks you, would you like to copy your class groupings? We click yes, take a copy. This has set up our class groupings for next year. So as you can see, there are no pupils in the counts here for the class groupings because all we've done so far is set up the groupings. On the EasyNet menu on the left hand side of the page, go to Rollover and Progressions. This brings up your progressions initiation screen. Click Start Rollover with Class Groupings. This brings up a screen which asks you to which class groupings are moving to which class grouping. So here under Move, please select, click on the drop down menu. This will give you a list of your current class groupings in the current academic year. So in this example, it's the class groupings in the 2013-2014 academic year. So in my list, I know Mrs. Kemmis here teaches the junior infants class. So I'm going to select Mrs. Kemmis, and I know I want my junior infants class to move to Mr. Dunn's class when they become senior infants. So in this To drop down menu here, I'm going to click Mr. Dunn. Then I'm going to click Move. And this appears down here. If I've made a mistake, I can click Remove and start again. And so on. So then I go back to this Move drop down menu, and you can see Mrs. Kemmis is gone now. That class group is gone. So my next class group is my first class group, and at the moment they're being taught by Mr. Crowley, so they're in Mr. Crowley's class group. So I'm going to select that class group, and when they move to next year I want them to be taught by Miss Coulter, so I'm going to select Miss Coulter. Again, click Move and continue as such, selecting all your current class groupings and moving them to a new class grouping for next year. So Miss Walpole this year has a multi-grade class, and I'm going to move her class grouping to Miss Walpole's class again for next year. Move. That just leaves Miss Coulter. Actually teaches the 6th class pupil, so I'm not going to move his class grouping on, as Mr. Dunn's class grouping will have left the school. Then go scroll down to the bottom of the page and click Continue. This brings up your progression declaration. Please read this and then tick to indicate that you've read it and that you understand it. Then click Rollover. Your progressions is now in progress. Note that you cannot do anything else in Pod while this is in progress. When the progressions is finished, click into Progressions. This screen now gives you a summary of your progressions. So this progression report here reminds you that you progressed your pupils from the 2013-2014 academic year to the 2014-2015 academic year. Then gives a summary of how many enrolment records were processed, and of these how many were progressed and how many were not progressed. Then scrolling further down the screen, it gives a summary of how many pupils were in which standard in the previous academic year and to which standard they've been progressed to. So for example here, in the 2013-14 academic year, we had 4 junior infants who were progressed to the new academic year 2014-15 to senior infants, and so on and so forth. We had 3 senior infants who were progressed to first class. Scrolling down further gives another summary of just the number of pupils in each standard in the new current academic year. And at the end it gives a list of the pupils, account of the pupils who did not progress. So as before, the maximum standard reached, there was 4 pupils who were in 6th class. They're not going to be progressed as they are going to be leaving your school. And then there are 3 pupils who had an incomplete record. If this happens, please contact our help desk at Dublin 01 889 2311. So that's Dublin 01 889 2311. And also there were 4 pupils who did not progress because they had a leaving date specified. This means that in this school those pupils were leaving before the end of the academic year. So the school would have gone in and entered they were leaving and put in their destination of where they were going. So as these pupils were leaving, the school would not want them to progress to the new academic year as they would have left the school. Click OK. Your progressions process is now finished, and as this was with class groupings, if you went in to search for your pupils, you would see that they've all moved now into their new class groupings.